without further ado, I'll pass you on to our first speaker, which is Joe Glenton. He's a soldier who went to Afghanistan and then refused to fight there and went to prison for standing up for what he believes in. So, Joe.
Ladies and gents, thanks for coming tonight, and it's good to see this crowd is still developing. There's still more people coming in, and my thanks to the group, of course, for inviting me down.
Do you want to stand?
Sorry, shall I not stand?
Because they'll hear you better.
Well, I'd like to explain something of my feelings after the last year of ups and downs, and it has been up and down for me, where it's left me. And it's left me feeling a lot more engaged with the world than I've ever felt before. And much more aware of the individual's power to resist that we all have. And thanks to the way the various elites of this country have stumbled through this whole process, and they're still stumbling around, it's left me feeling quite well equipped to carry on with my resistance. And in a very strange sense, I feel like I'm in their debt. So they revealed to me that they're not benign, and that's why I used to think that they were benign and they were looking after my interests. It's clearly not the case. And they've shown me how they manufacture consent for their wars, and how much they're willing to sacrifice for their own ambitions, and these are their own ambitions. And that is to say, they're willing to sacrifice my life and the lives of my comrades in the army and the lives of people in Afghanistan and Iraq to further those ambitions, which is a sickening revelation for me, but it's there. And what they showed me, and I understand that many of you, it probably won't be that much of a revelation, is that if you stand up to them, then they will crumble. That's the bottom line. And they only look big. This is a quote from a very good friend of mine, but he said it to me halfway through my process of being sent down. He said, they only look big until you get up off your knees. And to me, that's a very powerful statement. And he showed me that they can be bent to the will of the people. And that is what happened with me. The reason they didn't give me 10 or 2 years or whatever they promised me is because they rolled over in the end. And I've just served 4 months of a 9-month sentence compared to the 10 years they were promising me. And I count that as a victory, personally. That's my position. And further to that, I'd ask them, I don't mean to sound crass, but is that it? Is that all you can do when you're exposed? Is that all you've got? Bluster and posturing, it seems to be their brand. Personally, I'd do another 4 for the pleasure. My experience has also spurred me to wakefulness, which was a long time coming for me. But it's worth a lot. It's a powerful thing to suddenly look at the world with very different eyes. But there is a lot more to be done, and these are auspicious times for the people who've campaigned over many years against these wars. And there's turmoil among the people prosecuting these conflicts. The recession, the sacking of military figures recently, a very fragile coalition government, the exposure of how many deaths there's been recently, kidnapping, torture, the erosion of our civil liberties, and the saga of WikiLeaks, which I think is fantastic. Because, well, to me, I consider that probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, humanitarian act of the age of terror. That's how I look at it. And the repercussions will be going on for a long time. They're still going on. And now, if you'll forgive me, but I am now a Sparmy student rather than a squaddie. And I'll tell you some of my conclusions that I've come to during my own part of the process. And transparency is key for me, because it's the most terrifying thing of all for these people. And it should be the most necessary demand of the people they're governing. It's central to democracy, and I mean real democracy, the ideal of real democracy, not this kind of sham that we have in this country today. And simply, an example of that is when my case took on a public profile. That's why the military stamped off their feet and the government stamped their feet so hard and made so much noise and tried to clamp down on me. But in my struggle, and this is the reality, it wore them down, and it led to them dropping the desertion charge, which carried a potential probably up to about 10 years, and I can't even remember how many charges of speaking to the media, each of which under the Army's new act to keeping soldiers quiet carried 10 years. So we're looking at, it sounds ridiculous to me even now, but we're looking at 50 plus years with remission. And almost in the manner of an insurgency, by taking it into the public forum, and this is key for me, that's ground upon which they can't function. When it's transparent, people can see what they're doing. When people inside their own system turn on them, they can't function like that. And another good friend, I love this quote, and he said, and the best way I can sum it up, forgive me if it's a bit blunt, is they hate the sunlight because it makes their slime dry up. It sounds a bit venomous and bitter, but I'm a bit like that. And if there was ever a rallying cry for people in the military and the government to leak and expose corrupt and unethical and illegal practices, then this is it. It's their time to stand up. And if you need any more encouragement, then you're probably on the wrong side of the argument, to be fair. And I'd like to come to a guy you've probably heard of called Clausewitz, and he probably wouldn't expect me to cite him because he was kind of gory. But I will do anyway, even though he's been dead about 200 years, but sorry mate. And he talks about what's called the Holy Trinity, and this was central, to put it in some kind of context, to the collapse of the US occupation of Vietnam, as well as the Vietnamese giving him a bit of a kick in. And he says that war cannot continue without the sustained will of three groups. And those groups are the military, the people and the government. And if the will of one of those groups is removed, then it will collapse and withdrawal will follow, and that certainly was the case because the army turned on the US military and the people, their will was gone. And that, in my view, is where the strength of this movement is, certainly, because it's by informing and dissenting people, or informing people and dissenting. And the people whose support is already fully in decline, let's not be about the bush, removing their support for this occupation day by day, more and more. It's not popular, it's not a good war that Obama, if there is such a thing as a good war, but it's certainly not in this case. And this, of course, is entirely different from removing support for the troops. I mean, I know those guys, so I could never publicly say I don't support them. And they're just working class kids at the end of the day. It's the reality. They've been dragged in, economic conscription, that's what it is. But we support them by removing them from the theatre and ending this mess which has been created and they've been thrown into willy-nilly. And people are not, as various generals, Dannett and Mike Jackson, and all these high-profile military figures, people are not losing faith because they don't understand the reasons we're there. They're changing their calls, and they're losing their faith precisely because they do understand. That's my view, because the reality is coming to the fore now of why we're there. But why stop at this one element of this trinity that I talked about? Because realistically, through mass protest and the most thunderous dissent we can gather, we can make it so hard for them to act that they also think better of it. It's the warmongers. We can drag them to a halt, literally. So the onus of this is clearly on us, and I think the way to go is probably do what they've been doing so well in Europe recently, and get on the streets and make some serious noise. And while we're at it, it's probably not a bad idea to demand a forum that serving soldiers, like I was when I spoke out, can speak out unscripted and unthreatened, but that's not going to happen. It's going to be quite hard to get that one done, and it's got nothing to do, like they told me, with damaging morale in the military or unit cohesion. And it's got everything to do with keeping us in the dark while they kick the military covenant to the curb, invade country after country and tax us for it, squander the blood of our and Afghanistan and Iraq's youth, torture us, erode our civil liberties which weren't that easy to get in the first place, let's face it. For the record, soldiers are waking up to the reality that they've been sold out. In fact, several and more people are getting in touch with me through various mediums, Facebook, email, whatever, and making this point to me and saying they're not happy, which is a really powerful thing for me. And this is quite different from the kind of jingoistic drivel that Dr. Liam Fox, Defence Secretary, my mate, is selling, who does sound increasingly like a character from a Flashman novel to me. And I'll have a cheap dig here because I'm kind of half trying to pick a fight with the guy, or a debate, that would be nice. And this is the man who was quoted as saying of me, "Nothing seems to have been done to stop him," end quote. And I have to say to that, I don't suppose he's in it tonight, Liam Fox, but we're sorry mate, but lots was done to stop me, it's just that it didn't work. And I haven't finished yet. I'd like to say to you guys out here, I'd like to say thank you for your support. And I'll be really privileged if you come and stand with me on the 20th of November at the rally. Because there is a chance that we can do it, and if we stand alongside each other, which for me it looks like the people prosecuting this war are on the back foot because they are struggling now. And it looks to me like they need a timely shove just to help them along the way. Not literally. I hope to see you there because I've had so much support from you and people like yourselves. I know that I think it was only one time I felt alone during this process, and that was my first night of my second stint in prison. And I had 4 months kind of stretched out in front of me. That was the only time, because within 2 days of letters starting up, hundreds of letters, which was really hard. And when it's been dark, it's been scary, and it has at times. You've supported me, and a lot of people have carried me through. And this last year, and my involvement with this movement, has taught me the real meaning of solidarity and comradeship. far more than the military ever did. And I'd like to finish on a request, and there is a bit of a risk in that, but I've taken a few lately, and it's you who've carried me through this process. And it's all I can ask, because I feel genuinely that it's me who's in debt to you for helping me in my hour of need and supporting me so much with your letters and the goodwill I've had whenever I've been to meetings. And the request is this: will you march with me on the 20th? And you can go away and you can consider that, but I hope I see you there on the day. Thank you.